Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk about the uses of rhubarb, my favorite ways to use it, my favorite ways to preserve it, and a few other ideas that you might want to consider, because I'm assuming by the time this video publishes, a lot of you will already be into the rhubarb, as I suspect mine will be a pretty good size by then too, since videos like this are usually shot 4 to 6 weeks before they actually publish. So that's why you're not going to see any fresh rhubarb out here right now. So let me first talk about my favorite ways now to preserve rhubarb, and that is simply by either dehydrating it in sliced forms like this, which I have a video on dehydrating rhubarb, which I'll link to down below. And then also to take that same dehydrated rhubarb and then powder it up like this. And the reason why this is my favorite way to preserve it now, which I used to freeze it, but this way, especially powdered, takes up the least amount of space. How you decide to store it in a powdered form or in a form like this where it's sliced is going to be dependent on how you plan to use it. I'm finding now I'm more apt to use the powder more than anything, which is why this jar from 2023 is already down here. I put up a lot of rhubarb last year, but I used it mostly like this. So in a powdered form, it's a great way to add that tartness to any dessert you're making, where maybe you don't want the rhubarb pieces in there. So some people may be like me, where they like the flavor of rhubarb, but don't really care for the texture of it in its cut form like this when it's cooked. I'll eat it raw, but once it's cooked, it's just, the texture to me is really odd. Usually I eat it and enjoy it, and I've added it to many things, but it usually just sets wrong with me, the texture of it. But I can get the same flavor by simply powdering it and then adding it to my cooked goods. And that has worked out really well for me. And you can even take the dehydrated rhubarb like this if you want to use it in a pie or a crisp or a bread in this form. All you got to do is cook it for a few minutes in some water, just plain water. Just cover it with the water, let it cook until it's fully rehydrated, and add it to whatever it is that you want to add it to. When it comes to using the powder, I don't have to worry about that. So if I'm making a pie, like rhubarb is really great to add to blueberry pie, obviously strawberry, people know that. Apple pie, if you want to add some of that tartness in there, instead of, like, some people will add lemon juice, but like a lot of us, especially those who live in the more cooler northern climates, can't grow citrus very well, but we can grow rhubarb like nobody's business. Well, this is a way that we can get that same idea. We can get that little tartness to really bring out the flavor of whatever fruit. So like I said, peaches, it's really great with peaches. In fact, this last summer when I canned up some peaches, I threw a few pieces of fresh rhubarb in there to add color, but also a little more flavor to the peaches as they were canning. So what I do is about up to 1/4 cup of the powder into any pie or fruit crisp. More than that might be a little bit much. It might make it a little too tart, but it's all going to be up to your taste. You can use just 1 to 2 tablespoons if you'd prefer. So yes, last year we got tons and tons of apples, and though I dehydrated a whole bunch of apples, I decided to go ahead and put some up in the freezer in already ready to go pie mixes. And so I just added the rhubarb in there, and I could have canned it, but I've tried canning apples, and for some reason I just don't like the way they turn out. But freezing the mix, the apples, the cinnamon, and whatever other spices, your sugar, a little bit of flour, and the rhubarb, mix it all in there, and then put it in my little freezer bags, my reusable freezer bags. And then whenever I wanted to make a pie throughout the year, I just pull 1 or 2 of those out, depending on how many pies I'm making, and have my pie crust made and ready to go, and just dump it in there, and it's super easy. And anyway, so that's why a lot of this got used right away. It wasn't that we were eating that many desserts, but I was putting a lot. I think I put at least a dozen pies up like that, and I still have a bunch in there to work through. So now some other ideas that you can use rhubarb for. Well, in either dried or fresh form, you can use it to make vinegar, which I've done. You can use it as is to make vinegar, or you can mix it with other herbs or fruits to make vinegar. So it's all going to be up to you, but I think I have a video just on how to use dried goods to make vinegar, and in that one I believe I was using rhubarb, so I'll put that video down below. And then you can also use the rhubarb, fresh or dried, to make a fermentation starter, which I have also done, as you can see in this picture here. It shows a few different fermentation starters. I think this picture, it shows me making one with dried rhubarb, orange peels, and also a dandelion, straight from the garden. And if you'd like to know more information about a fermentation starter, how easy it is to make, and the many ways you can use it, I'll link to my old video down below. You can also make some fermented sodas, they're just lightly fermented so they get nice and fizzy, using your fresh or dried rhubarb, and you can add any other thing to that for your flavor. So you can mix some fresh strawberries and fresh rhubarb together and then just let it infuse into your water and ferment for a few days and have a nice drink. Or you can even juice those items and then make a nice fermented soda out of that. And I have made wine on a few occasions now using my fresh rhubarb, where in that case I do take it and freeze it because it makes it easier to press the juice out. To make a gallon of wine or mead, you're going to need about 3-gallon bags of some kind of, whether it be blackberries, your grapes, or your rhubarb. And I always find freezing's best. It just makes the juice press out better. But in that case, you do definitely need to add a starter to it, because the freezing process tends to kill the bacteria and yeast needed for a good ferment. So that's why dehydrating doesn't do that. For whatever reason, you can dehydrate these things and they'll come out just fine, or obviously using fresh. But for if you're wanting to get the juice, freezing it first is the easiest way. And then I just use my fruit press and we press that out. And I have a video just on making what I call a rhubarb margarita wine, because for some reason the rhubarb juice always has kind of a bit of a salty flavor to it. So anyway, I just make my own tweaks to give it a really nice flavor. And it's actually one of my most popular wines. If on those rare occasions I do serve some to people. And they love that one, the margarita one, that, and then my homemade grape wine, or even the grape and blackberry. Those ones always go over quite well. And then of course you can also add especially your fresh rhubarb or your rhubarb powder to any kind of smoothie, or if you're making some kind of popsicle or creamsicle. That's something I'll do a lot of times in the summertime, is take some of our fresh fruits and whatever's coming in from the garden. Like right here's a picture of, I think this one is a currant blueberry and rhubarb creamsicle. So I'll use organic cream and some honey and or organic sugar, and then the fruit, and just throw it all in there. I think I have a video, maybe if not on that particular one, I do have several different creamsicle videos. I'll link to at least one of them down below. Actually, I might even have a playlist of frozen treats. I haven't done a video on that in a long time, but I need to do that. But also just for making a smoothie. So adding the rhubarb to any of those, just like you would to any of your dessert type dishes or your jams or your syrups. Some more ideas there. I've used rhubarb in the rhubarb peach jam. I've used rhubarb mixed with the salmon berries from our other piece of property. It definitely made a better flavor for the salmon berries, and that made a pretty tasty jam. You can even ferment the smoothies, which I also have a video on fermented fruit smoothies. Those I was just using all apple and then my own homemade extracts for flavoring. But you could add the rhubarb to that as well and then ferment it and have a nice fizzy fruit smoothie. Pretty darn tasty. So I need to do that again this year, by the way, when my apples start coming in. And then I just did a little hunting around because I know there's going to be tons of different recipes out there. And the link I liked best, I'm going to give you down below, is a link to old-fashioned rhubarb recipes. And there is a lot in there for cookies and breads and pies and crisps and all kinds of different recipes in there. So I'm going to link to that down below. That includes, like, they had one that was for like a rhubarb applesauce. Now I've made berry applesauce. That's one of the things I like to do with my apples, is mix some berries in for flavor. But you can do the same thing with your rhubarb and make your applesauce. And then a rhubarb relish. So many ideas. So I thought, oh, this is a great one. So I decided I'll just give you the link to that so you can go peruse through there if you're looking for some different types of recipes besides just the standard rhubarb pie or rhubarb strawberry pie or crisp. Lots of great ideas that you might really enjoy. So anyway, I hope you found that helpful, and remember to access the description box. Some people still don't know how to open the description box, so they're looking down and they don't see anything and think the content creator is not doing their job. Well, you got to open the description box, because like on YouTube, for instance, we cannot post that stuff in a comment until after the video publishes, and we may forget by that point, especially if you're like me and you have your videos publishing anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks after you put them up, and then you have to remember to go back and add this stuff. But the description box works because we can put those in the description box right away as the video's uploading. And so you got to make sure you know how to open it, which if you're on Rumble, you're going to look for the words show more somewhere down here. And if you're on a smart device, you may have to scroll down a little farther below whatever ad Rumble decides to put in there. If you're on YouTube, look for the word more. It just says ... more. It used to say show more, and then they shortened it to more, somewhere down below the video screen. Once you click on that, it'll open the description box to find all the many links and other information that us content creators like to share with you. So any other thoughts, ideas you would like to share about your favorite ways to use your rhubarb, please put those in comments down below so people can learn from you as well. And thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.